The blood-red sunset cast long shadows across Pueblo, Colorado, as Daisy Turner clutched the doctor's letter in her trembling hands. It was 1875, and at 22 years old, she had just received the most devastating news of her life: she would never bear children. The cramping pains that had plagued her since adolescence finally had a name, but knowing the cause did nothing to ease the hollow ache forming in her chest. Daisy folded the letter carefully, tucking it into her skirt pocket as she stepped out of the doctor's office onto the dusty Main Street. The town of Pueblo hummed with late-afternoon activity: miners coming off shift, ranch hands gathering at the saloon, and shopkeepers beginning to close for the day. None of them knew her world had just shattered. "Miss Turner, are you all right?" The voice belonged to Mrs. Hawkins, the general store owner's wife. Daisy blinked back tears and forced a smile. "Yes, madam, just a touch of the sun. Good day to you." She hurried along the boardwalk, desperate to reach her small, rented room above the millinery shop before the tears broke free. 3 years ago, after her parents died of influenza, Daisy had come west from Pennsylvania with dreams of a fresh start. She'd found work as the town's schoolteacher, established a respectable life, and secretly harbored hopes of meeting a good man to build a family with. Now that dream lay in ruins. Inside her room, Daisy finally allowed herself to weep. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. "The scarring is extensive, impossible to conceive. I'm sorry, Miss Turner." She'd always imagined a house filled with children's laughter. What man would want her now? The following morning, Daisy dressed in her plainest gray dress and forced herself to walk to the schoolhouse. 26 children waited for their teacher, and regardless of her personal sorrows, she had responsibilities. "Good morning, class," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Good morning, Miss Turner," they chorused. By midday, the strain of maintaining her composure left Daisy exhausted. When the children filed out for their lunch break, she remained at her desk, staring blankly at the arithmetic problems she'd written on the slate. "Excuse me, madam." Daisy looked up to find a tall man standing in the doorway, his broad shoulders nearly filling the frame. He wore the practical clothing of a rancher's sturdy denims, a faded blue shirt, and a weathered Stetson held respectfully in his hands. His face was tanned from long days under the Colorado sun, with crow's feet at the corners of remarkably kind eyes. "May I help you?" she asked, hastily wiping away a tear that had escaped. "Jake Foster, madam. I own the Double F Ranch about 10 miles west." He stepped forward, and she noticed he carried a small parcel. "I've come about my nephew, Tommy. His mother, my sister, passed last month back in Kansas City. The boy's coming to live with me, and he'll need schooling." Daisy nodded, relieved to focus on something besides her own troubles. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Foster. How old is Tommy?" "8, madam. Smart as a whip, according to my sister's letters. He arrives on Saturday's stage." Jake shifted the package to his other hand. "Truth is, I don't know much about raising a boy, been on my own since I was 17. Children need stability, patience, and love, Mr. Foster. The rest you learn as you go." Daisy managed a small smile. "When will he start school?" "Monday, if that suits. And this," he placed the parcel on her desk. "My sister sent Tommy's school records and such. Thought you might want to see them beforehand." As Daisy reached for the package, her hand trembled visibly. She tried to hide it, but Jake's observant eyes missed nothing. "Miss Turner, are you unwell?" The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her composure. "I'm quite well, thank you." The lie felt bitter on her tongue. Jake didn't appear convinced but nodded respectfully. "I won't take more of your time. The children are returning." Indeed, the sound of youthful voices grew louder outside. Jake replaced his hat and turned to leave, then paused. "Miss Turner," There's a town social this Saturday. I don't suppose. Daisy's heart lurched. Under normal circumstances, she might have welcomed the attention of this quietly confident man. But now, I don't think I'll attend, Mr. Foster, but thank you. His disappointment showed briefly before he tipped his hat. Another time, perhaps. As he walked away, Daisy fought the urge to call him back. What would be the point? She had nothing to offer a man like Jake Foster, no possibility of children, no chance of a real family. Saturday arrived, and despite her intentions to stay home, Daisy found herself walking toward the town hall where the social was being held. She told herself she was only going to help Mrs. Peterson with the refreshments, but her carefully arranged hair and blue dress, her finest, suggested otherwise. The hall was decorated with paper streamers and wildflowers. A three-piece band played in the corner while couples circled the dance floor. Daisy moved directly to the refreshment table, where Mrs. Peterson gratefully accepted her help. "Look who finally decided to join us, Mrs. Peterson said, nodding toward the entrance. Jake Foster stood in the doorway, looking distinctly uncomfortable in a clean white shirt and black vest. Beside him stood a small, solemn-faced boy with a mop of dark hair. Tommy, she presumed. "He's been asking about you," Mrs. Peterson whispered. "Twice this week, he's come into town and found excuses to pass by the schoolhouse. He's only concerned about his nephew starting school," Daisy replied, though her pulse quickened. She busied herself arranging cookies on a platter, but soon felt a presence beside her. Looking up, she found Jake and the boy standing at the table. "Miss Turner," Jake said, his voice warm. "This is my nephew, Tommy. Tommy, this is your new teacher." The boy looked up at her with serious blue eyes. "How do you do, madam?" "Very well, thank you, Tommy." "I'm looking forward to having you in my class." Daisy smiled at him. "Are you settling in at your uncle's ranch?" "Yes, madam. Uncle Jake gave me my own horse. Her name is Penny." "That's wonderful." Daisy glanced at Jake, who was watching their interaction closely. "Your uncle must be very glad to have you." "He says I'm good company," Tommy said, "but he talks to the horses more than me." Jake laughed, a rich sound that made several heads turn. "Horses are simpler, son. They don't ask so many questions." The band struck up a lively tune, and Tommy's eyes lit up. "Can I go watch the dancing, Uncle Jake?" "Stay where I can see you," Jake agreed, and the boy darted off. Left alone with Jake, Daisy felt suddenly shy. "He seems like a fine boy." "He is. His father died before he was born, and my sister raised him alone until the consumption took her." Jake's eyes followed Tommy. "I've spent the last 5 years building my ranch. Never thought much about family until Mary's letter came asking me to take him." "It's very admirable of you." Jake shrugged. "He's blood. A man looks after his own." He paused, then added softly, "You look mighty pretty tonight, Miss Turner." The compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you, Mr. Foster." "Would you care to dance?" Daisy hesitated, glancing at Mrs. Peterson, who was practically shooing her away. "I'd like that." Jake's hand was warm and calloused as he led her to the dance floor. He moved with surprising grace for such a big man, guiding her through the waltz with confident steps. "I should warn you," he said as they circled the floor. "Half the ladies in town are watching us with interest. You're causing quite a stir, dancing with the hermit rancher." "Hermit? You don't strike me as antisocial, Mr. Foster." "Jake, please." "And I've been too busy building the ranch to socialize much." His eyes held hers. "Though I'm finding reasons to come to town more often these days." The implication made her cheeks warm. "Jake, Uncle Jake, Miss Turner." Tommy appeared beside them, breathless with excitement. "Mr. Wilson says there's going to be fireworks down by the creek." Jake looked apologetically at Daisy. "Would you like to see the fireworks, Miss Turner?" "Daisy, please." "And yes, I would." The three of them walked together to the creek that ran along the edge of town, joining the crowd gathered on its banks. As darkness fell completely, the first rockets whistled skyward, bursting into brilliant red and gold stars. Tommy watched in wide-eyed wonder while Jake stood close beside Daisy. When his hand found hers in the darkness, she didn't pull away. For a few magical moments, they were like any other couple, sharing a beautiful night under exploding stars. But reality returned as they walked back to town. This couldn't go anywhere. She would only bring disappointment to this good man and his nephew. Jake deserved a whole woman, someone who could give him more children to fill his home. At her doorstep, Jake looked down at her with an expression that made her heart ache. "I'd like to call on you properly, Daisy. Would that be all right?" She steeled herself. "Jake, you're a kind man, but I don't think that would be wise." Confusion crossed his face. "Have I misunderstood? I thought you've done nothing wrong," she hurried to assure him. "It's just, there are things you don't know about me." "Then tell me." "I can't, not now." She reached for her door. "Good night, Jake. I'll see Tommy on Monday." Inside, she leaned against the door, tears streaming down her face. The brief happiness she'd felt in Jake's company only made her situation more painful. She would have to guard her heart carefully. Monday morning brought Tommy Foster to school. The boy fit in quickly, showing both intelligence and a friendly nature that won over his classmates. Jake sometimes brought him to school on horseback, and those brief morning encounters became the highlights of Daisy's days. 2 weeks after the social, Daisy was teaching a geography lesson when the classroom door burst open. Mrs. Peterson stood there, face flushed. "Miss Turner, come quick. There's been an accident at the mill. They're calling for anyone with medical knowledge." Daisy had assisted the doctor several times during minor emergencies. "Class, continue reading the chapter. Betty, you're in charge until I return." She grabbed her small kit of medical supplies and rushed to the sawmill at the edge of town. A crowd had gathered outside, and she pushed through to find several men lying on the ground. The mill's boiler had exploded, injuring 5 workers. "Miss Turner, over here," Dr. Wilson called. He knelt beside a man with severe burns on his arms and chest. With a shock, she recognized Jake Foster. "Jake," she fell to her knees beside him. "What happened? Why were you at the mill?" He grimaced in pain. "Delivering lumber from my property. Wrong place, wrong time." "Save the talking, doctor," Wilson ordered. "Miss Turner, I need your help with these burns while I see to Harkins. His leg's badly broken." For the next hour, Daisy cleaned and dressed Jake's burns, her hands gentle but efficient. His injuries weren't life-threatening, but they were serious enough to require careful treatment. "Who's looking after Tommy?" she asked as she applied a salve to his reddened skin. "He's at school," Jake said through gritted teeth. Daisy glanced at the town clock. "School's nearly over." "I should go back. I'll send someone," Dr. Wilson said, returning to check Jake's condition. "Foster needs to rest, but he'll recover. The burns need daily tending, though." "I can manage," Jake insisted, trying to sit up. Dr. Wilson pushed him back down. "You most certainly cannot. Not with burns on both arms. You'll need help for at least a week." "I'll arrange something," Daisy said. "Perhaps Mrs. Peterson." "I don't want charity," Jake said stubbornly. "It's not charity to accept help when you need it," Daisy countered. "What about Tommy? He needs you well." That argument seemed to reach him. "Fine, but I'm going home. No hospital," Dr. Wilson sighed. "If someone can stay at the ranch to help with the dressings and make sure infection doesn't set in." "I'll do it," Daisy said, surprising herself as much as the men. "I can take leave from school. Mrs. Davidson can substitute." Jake stared at her. "You would do that, for Tommy's sake," she said, though they both knew it was more than that. By nightfall, arrangements had been made. Mrs. Davidson would teach for a week, and Daisy would stay at the Double F Ranch to care for Jake and ensure Tommy wasn't neglected. Propriety was satisfied by Tommy's presence, and the fact that Jake was too injured for anything improper to be considered. The ranch was larger than Daisy had imagined, a sprawling single-story house with a wide porch, surrounded by corrals, a barn and bunkhouses for the 3 ranch hands Jake employed. The land stretched for acres, with grazing cattle visible in the distance and mountains framing the horizon. Jake was settled in his bedroom, his burns freshly bandaged. Tommy showed Daisy to the guest room, chattering about his chores and his pony. "Uncle Jake says you're real smart," Tommy said as he helped her carry her valise. "He says you know more about books than anybody he ever met." "Your uncle is very kind," Daisy replied, touched by Jake's compliment. "He likes you a lot," Tommy continued artlessly. "I heard him tell Mr. Wilson that you were the prettiest girl in Colorado Territory." Daisy felt her cheeks flush. "Tommy, it's not polite to repeat private conversations." "Sorry, madam." He didn't look particularly repentant. "Are you going to be my aunt someday?" The innocent question struck Daisy like a physical blow. "Tommy, that's not we're not I'm just here to help until your uncle is better." Tommy looked disappointed but dropped the subject. "I'll show you where everything is in the kitchen." The first evening passed quietly. Daisy prepared a simple meal, helped Tommy with his homework, and checked Jake's bandages before bed. Despite his pain, Jake remained stoic, thanking her with quiet dignity for her help. As she lay in bed that night, Daisy wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Being in Jake's home, caring for him, seeing the life he'd built, it was all too easy to imagine belonging here permanently. But that was a dream she couldn't afford to indulge. Days fell into a rhythm. Daisy rose early to prepare breakfast and change Jake's bandages. Tommy went to school on the ranch wagon driven by Hank, one of the ranch hands. During the day, Daisy tended to Jake, prepared meals, and kept the house in order. By the 3rd day, Jake was well enough to sit in a chair on the porch, watching the ranch activities with impatience. His burns were healing, but he couldn't use his hands properly yet. "You're a terrible patient," Daisy scolded as she brought him coffee. "I've got cattle to tend, fences to mend, and a boy to raise. Sitting here watching others do my work doesn't sit well." Daisy sat in the rocker beside him. "The ranch won't fall apart in a week, Jake. Your men seem very capable." "They are," he admitted. "Hank's been with me since the beginning. He and the others could run things without me for months if needed. Then relax and heal." They sat in companionable silence, watching the sun climb higher. Finally, Jake spoke. "Why did you really come here, Daisy? It wasn't just for Tommy." She looked down at her hands. "You needed help." "There are others who could have helped. Mrs. Peterson volunteered, so did the widow Harris." "Perhaps I wanted to help." Jake turned to face her. "You've been avoiding me since the social. Then suddenly you're living in my house. A man gets confused," Daisy sighed. "It's complicated, Jake." "Most important things are." He reached out with his bandaged hand, awkwardly covering hers. "Whatever it is that's troubling you, I wish you'd tell me." The tenderness in his voice nearly broke her resolve. For a moment, she considered telling him everything: the doctor's diagnosis, her shattered dreams. But fear held her back. "Some things are better left unsaid," she murmured, withdrawing her hand. Jake's expression hardened slightly. "I disagree, but I won't press you." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of a rider, Dr. Wilson, coming to check on his patient. "You're healing well, Foster," the doctor pronounced after examining the burns. "Credit to your nurse here. You've got a gentle touch, Miss Turner." "Thank you, doctor." Another few days and he can start using his hands again, though nothing strenuous for at least 2 weeks. After the doctor left, the atmosphere between Jake and Daisy remained strained. She busied herself with household tasks while he returned to his chair on the porch. That evening, after Tommy was asleep, Daisy found Jake still on the porch, staring at the stars. "You should rest," she said, standing in the doorway. "I've been thinking," he replied without looking at her. "About what you said, that some things are better left unsaid. My father believed that. He never spoke of his feelings, never told my mother he loved her, though I know he did. When she died, he shut down completely, stopped talking to me or Mary altogether." Jake turned to face her. "I promised myself I'd never be like that. Life's too short for silence." Daisy stepped onto the porch, drawn by the raw emotion in his voice. "When Mary wrote asking me to take Tommy, I was terrified," Jake continued. "What did I know about raising a boy? But he's taught me something important, that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to love someone, to make them part of your life." His eyes held hers in the dim light. "I'm falling in love with you, Daisy Turner. I don't expect you to feel the same, but I won't keep it inside like my father did." Daisy felt tears spring to her eyes. "Jake, please don't. You don't have to say anything now. Just know that whatever's holding you back, whatever secret you're keeping, it won't change how I feel." She turned away, unable to bear the hope in his eyes. "You can't know that. Try me." The words hung in the air between them. Daisy knew this was the moment. Tell him the truth and end this fantasy, or continue the deception and prolong the inevitable heartbreak. "I can't have children," she whispered, the words like glass in her throat. "The doctor confirmed it last week. There's damage, scarring that makes it impossible." She couldn't look at him. "So you see, I'm not the woman you think I am, not someone who can give you a family." The silence that followed seemed endless. When she finally gathered the courage to look at him, she expected to see disappointment or pity. Instead, his expression held only tenderness. "Is that all?" he asked softly. Confusion replaced her anguish. "All, Jake. I'm barren. I can never give you children of your own." He stood slowly, mindful of his injuries, and moved to stand before her. "Daisy, I already have a son in all the ways that matter. Tommy is family, not because we share blood, but because we share love. But most men want their own children, their legacy. I'm not most men." He carefully took her hands in his bandaged ones. "I've never much cared what others think a man should want. I know what I want: a partner, someone to share my life with. If that's all we ever have, it would be enough." Tears streamed down Daisy's face. "How can you say that when you barely know me?" "I know enough." His voice was firm. "I know you're kind and brave. I know you put others before yourself. I know Tommy lights up when you enter a room, and so do I." He released one of her hands to gently wipe away a tear. "I know that home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. And I've felt more at home in these few days with you here than in all the years since I built this house." Hope, fragile but persistent, bloomed in Daisy's heart. "What if you change your mind someday? What if you resent me? What if the sky falls? What if the creek runs backward?" Jake smiled. "We can spend our lives worrying about what might happen, or we can live them day by day together. It's not that simple. It can be." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "Daisy Turner, you've already given me a home, a real one with laughter and warmth. That's worth more than any legacy." The truth of his words resonated deep within her. For the first time since receiving the doctor's letter, Daisy felt something other than despair. She felt possibility. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "So am I," Jake said. "Loving someone is terrifying, but being alone is worse." When his lips found hers, gentle and questioning, Daisy let herself answer with all the feelings she'd been suppressing. The kiss deepened, becoming a promise and acceptance. When they finally parted, Jake smiled. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight. Just think about it. About us." Daisy nodded, too overwhelmed for words. As she lay in bed that night, She allowed herself to imagine a future with Jake and Tommy, not the future she'd once dreamed of, but perhaps one even more precious for being unexpected. The remaining days of Daisy's stay at the ranch passed quickly. Jake regained the use of his hands, though the doctor insisted he avoid heavy work for another week. Tommy continued to thrive, bringing home good reports from school and chattering about his friends. On Daisy's last night at the ranch, Jake suggested they have a special dinner. Tommy helped set the table with the good dishes, and Jake managed to cook a respectable beef roast despite his healing burns. "A toast," Jake said, raising his water glass since Tommy was present. "To Miss Turner, whose care has made all the difference." Tommy raised his glass enthusiastically. "To Miss Turner," Daisy smiled at them both. "Thank you for making me feel so welcome." After dinner, Tommy presented her with a hand-carved wooden heart. "Uncle Jake helped me make it," he said proudly, "so you'd remember us." "It's beautiful, Tommy. I'll treasure it always." When Tommy went to bed, Jake and Daisy sat together on the porch swing. The night was clear, with thousands of stars visible in the vast Colorado sky. "I've been thinking," Jake said after a while. "That sounds dangerous," Daisy teased. He laughed. "Maybe it is." He took her hand. "Daisy, I meant what I said before, about wanting you in my life, about not needing children of our own. I know you did, but I realize I've been selfish. I've been thinking about what I want, not what you want." He looked at her seriously. "Do you want to be a mother? Because if you do, there are other ways." Daisy was startled. "What do you mean, adoption?" "There are orphans who need homes, children who have lost their parents like Tommy did. If being a mother is important to you, we could give a home to children who need one." The thought had never occurred to her. "You would do that?" In a heartbeat. "Tommy would love siblings." Jake squeezed her hand. "The way I see it, family is what we make it. Blood doesn't matter nearly as much as love." Tears welled in Daisy's eyes. "Jake Foster, you are an extraordinary man." "Is that a yes?" "Yes to what?" "You haven't actually asked me anything," she pointed out, her heart racing. Jake slid off the swing and, despite his still healing burns, knelt before her. "Daisy Turner, will you marry me? Will you make a home with me and Tommy and perhaps other children who need one?" Joy, pure and overwhelming, surged through Daisy. "Yes, Jake. Yes to all of it." Their wedding took place a month later in Pueblo's small church. The entire town turned out, delighted by the romance between their schoolteacher and the rancher. Tommy served as ring bearer, beaming with pride as he watched his uncle and his beloved teacher exchange vows. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "Mr. Foster, you may kiss your bride." As Jake's lips met hers, Daisy knew she had found her home at last. The first year of marriage brought adjustments for all of them. Daisy continued teaching, riding to and from town with Tommy each day. Jake's ranch prospered under his careful management, and their home became known for its warmth and hospitality. In the spring of 1876, a letter arrived from the orphanage in Denver. Twins, a boy and a girl, just 3 years old, needed a home. Their parents had died in a fire and no relatives had come forward. "Are you sure about this?" Daisy asked Jake as they prepared to travel to Denver. "Twins will be twice the work, twice the noise." Jake pulled her close. "And twice the love. Tommy's excited to be a big brother." When they arrived at the orphanage, the twins Daniel and Dora regarded them solemnly with identical brown eyes. They were thin and quiet, clinging to each other as if afraid of being separated. Daisy knelt before them. "Hello, Daniel, Dora. I'm Daisy and this is Jake. We'd like you to come live with us and our son Tommy on our ranch. Would you like that?" Daniel looked suspicious. "Forever, forever," Jake confirmed, kneeling beside Daisy. "Together," Dora whispered. "Me and Danny stay together." "Always together," Daisy promised, her heart breaking for these children who had already lost so much. The twins exchanged a look, seeming to communicate without words as only twins can. Finally, Daniel nodded. Okay. The journey home was quiet, the twins overwhelmed by the change. But when they arrived at the ranch and Tommy ran out to greet them, something magical happened. He showed them his pony, promised to teach them to ride, and offered to share his toys. By evening, the twins were smiling. That night, after all three children were asleep, Jake found Daisy on the porch, gazing at the stars. "Happy?" he asked, sitting beside her. "More than I ever thought possible." She leaned against him. "When the doctor told me I couldn't have children, I thought my dreams were over. I never imagined there could be another path to motherhood. Life has a way of surprising us." Jake wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Those children needed us as much as we needed them." "I worry about the twins," Daisy admitted. "They've been through so much trauma. They'll heal. They have a family now, and a home." The twins did heal, gradually coming out of their shells under the loving care of their new family. Daniel proved to have a natural affinity for horses, while Dora revealed a sharp mind and artistic talent. Tommy took his role as big brother seriously, protecting and guiding the younger children with patient determination. 2 years later, they added another child to their family, a newborn baby boy whose mother had died in childbirth, and whose father, a drifter, had abandoned him. They named him Joseph, after Jake's father. 4 children, Jake marveled as they watched them play in the yard. "If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd have a wife and 4 children, I'd have called them crazy." "Crazy good or crazy bad," Daisy teased. "The best kind of crazy." He kissed her softly. "The kind that makes a house into a home." As the years passed, the foster family became a fixture in Pueblo. Jake expanded his ranch, eventually becoming one of the largest cattle operations in the county. Daisy continued teaching until she became the school principal, implementing progressive educational methods that drew attention from across the state. Tommy grew into a thoughtful young man who eventually took over half the ranch operations. The twins found their individual paths, Daniel as a horse trainer whose methods were sought after throughout the territory, and Dora as an illustrator for a Denver newspaper. Little Joseph showed signs of following his mother into education, with a special gift for explaining complex ideas to others. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Jake and Daisy hosted a celebration that brought friends and family from miles around. Their children, all grown, or nearly so, organized the event, transforming the ranch into a festive gathering place with lanterns hanging from trees and tables groaning with food. As the sun set, casting the same red-gold light that had illuminated Pueblo on the day Daisy received the doctor's letter so many years ago, Jake led her away from the crowd to their favorite spot by the creek. 25 years, he said, taking her hands in his. The best years of my life. Daisy smiled up at him, the lines around her eyes testament to years of laughter and sunshine. Mine too. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked. Marrying a rough rancher, taking on a ready-made family? Never. Not for a single moment. She touched his cheek, still strong though now framed with silver hair. You gave me everything I ever wanted, Jake Foster. A home, a family, love. You gave me those things too. He kissed her hand. Remember what I told you that night on the porch, that you'd already given me a home. I remember. It's still true. You're still my home, Daisy Foster. You always will be. As they returned to the celebration, walking hand in hand toward the laughter and music, Daisy reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the devastating news in the doctor's office to this moment of complete fulfillment, her path had been unexpected but perfect in its own way. Family, she had learned, wasn't defined by blood or birth. It was created through love, choice, and commitment. The children who called her mother might not have come from her body, but they had grown in her heart, each one a miracle in their own right. And Jake, her steadfast, loving Jake, had seen beyond society's narrow definition of womanhood to the person she truly was. In doing so, he had given her the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that she was enough, exactly as she was. Under the star-filled Colorado sky, surrounded by the family they had built together, Daisy knew with absolute certainty that she had found her true home not in a place, but in the love they shared. As if reading her thoughts, Jake squeezed her hand and whispered, "Welcome home, my love. Welcome home." The words echoed in her heart, a perfect conclusion to the journey that had begun with tears but ended in immeasurable joy. In the distance, their children waved, calling them back to the celebration, back to the family that love, not biology, had created. Hand in hand, they walked toward that future together, each step a testament to the truth they had discovered. That home is not where you're from, it's where you're loved. And in that, they were the richest people in all of Colorado territory.